Morning, Brother Brian, my lovely co-host. How are you today, sir?
Good afternoon, Chris. Very well, thank you. How are you? Hello, Randy.
Good morning. Good afternoon.
Good morning.
Afternoon for Brian, still morning for all of us. And let's see who else joined. Brother Gary, nice to have you here, brother.
Morning. Camera's not working.
That's all right. You got a face for radio, so you're fine.
Exactly.
I definitely have a face for radio. All right, Brother Alan, good to have you here. And Brother Rick. Everybody's chomping at the bit to get in. That's good.
I invited several people, Masons,
Okay.
all but one,
Mhm.
and the one is an interested petition.
Oh, okay.
So my nothing that I'm going to be saying today is out of bounds. There are some ritual references he won't get, just straight up.
Right.
But is what it is, right?
Yeah.
So I just wanted to make sure that was okay. I can call him real quick and say, "Hey, pass."
No. Understand it. And this is how I look at the research papers that I publish. And believe it or not, I have papers that were published in our own proceedings. And when I'm reviewing them to put them on the website or email to people, it's like, yeah, no, you're going into extensive details. And you know that the secret word of a master mason rhymes with this word in Egyptian, which means this. Like, hold on.
Yeah.
You can't say, well, it sounds just like this one. So for whatever reason, other editors may not have been careful as me. But in my view, I'm putting it on a website. I'm putting it on Facebook. I'm emailing it to people. So any research paper that I'm sharing can't have any specific ritual in it. So I look at it as these meetings, anyone can join. There you are, Rick. Good to have you.
It's good to be here.
And so any talk that we have here has to be something that a non-Mason can hear because it's going to be up on YouTube anyway. So that's the rule. It's like, it's something you can see on the internet, therefore you don't have to be a Mason to hear it.
Right.
And that's an easy rule to follow then.
The quick and dirty
Mhm.
is the ritual has been published how many times now in exposés. In fact, it's true, but it's sad, but the current Masonic Research Foundation, Masonic Book Club, whatever they call themselves, they're publishing out one of the old 1800s exposés that went through all of I think it was the Preston version before Webb got hold of it.
Yeah.
One of the exposés from the anti-Masonic movement, which is really very entertaining, right? Because they've only mixed up a few words, phrases, grips, things here and there in the interim between what we're using now and what they were using back then. So very entertaining.
Yeah. Well, I look at it this way, having been in the military and maintaining the security clearance as a contractor for many years. Just because it's in the paper that the USS Wisconsin is sailing out from Norfolk on Saturday at 2 a.m. doesn't mean I can confirm that, even though the paper said it. It is my responsibility if I know it to be fact. I mean, I was in exercises in North Carolina when I was in the Marine station here in Virginia, and it'd be all in the papers. And I go to my sergeant, I say, look, it says what units are going, what time they're going to be there, what the purpose of the exercise. I was told that's classified. It is, but it's in the paper. Yes, it is. But you can't talk about it. You can't, because you're just confirming. So if the whole idea is to keep the enemy off guard, is you don't confirm something, because once you see it in the paper and you get actual military people to confirm it, that reinforces that is accurate intel. So that's the whole point. We can't confirm or deny. So Masonry is the same way. Just because you can go buy a book or you can read online doesn't mean I'm released from my obligation not to share the secret. It's kind of how I look at it. But, I definitely compare it to being in the military and guarding classified information. You just don't, it's not your job to confirm it. You just like, I don't know. So all I can do is guard the gate of what little corner I'm responsible for. And like I said, I've had papers that I've made the judgment call, or I've sent it to my secretary. I eventually got to the point where I just make the call myself, because they always come back and say, yeah, it's on you. You decide. You go ahead. We trust your judgment. So I'm like, fine, I'll just make the call. But there's only been a handful out of the 150 some that I have published that I said, yeah, I'm not going to share that. I'm not going to put it out there. It's just too close to direct. One of them was really useful. The guy was talking about the ritual from like the 1500s and the 1600s and how it's evolved. And there are parts in there that are like, oh, that's crazy stuff. But like 2/3 of it is word for word what we're using today. It's like, well, no, I can't publish that. It'd be great to have in a lodge, sure, but not something we put online. So anyway, that's the standard we follow. So
If you know where to look for it, most of the Grand Lodge of Grand Lodge of England's ritual is available online anyway.
is it now?
But
All right.
and there's a Dutch site which has got the whole lot.
All right. Yeah. And Brian, I did add you as a co-host, but I'm trying to get these guys. Okay, I got my worshipful master and my marshal in the room, so I have to watch what I say now. Morning, brother Rooster. Good to have you with us, worshipful.
He
And
just
you're on
joined
mute.
audio as you said that.
Yeah, no, I see his name there on the participants. I'll wait for him to resolve before I said it. Rooster, you want to say hello to the group? Rooster was just elected worshipful master in December of Virginia Research.
Good morning,
Good to see you,
everybody.
sir.
I'm been having problems trying to get on here. My computer shut down, and I thought I was gonna get back on. The sun's so bright out there. We got so much snow.
Yep, same here.
Yeah. Any of y'all want some? It's free. I'll give you all you want.
Will you deliver?
Yeah,
Yeah, I'll deliver. I'll put in an order for you.
Okay, Amazon, I'm sure will get it to me. And John London, I think, is just dialed in because he typically does that on his phone rather than his computer. So good to have you with us, brother John. If he wants to come off mute and say hello.
Actually, I'm doing hybrid.
Oh, are you? Good. We like hybrid. Very cool. Good to have you with us. You still owe me some
Either
papers.
connection may cut out.
You still owe me some papers, John. When am I going to get them?
Oh, thanks.
I will admit, I am down. I'm scraping the bottom of the barrel. Nothing against Douglas Smith. I'm glad I have their papers, but I'm getting to the end of the list of papers from them, and I don't have any current ones of ours. So I'm fast reaching the point where I won't be able to put out a paper every week because I won't have material. So that's why I'm hoping to get some from you and more from A. Douglas Smith. I'm happy to share theirs too, but I went through, for those of you who know, we publish the papers every week, and I scan the old transactions and have hard copies of some, and I scan them and digitize them, put them online. And it's a long process. If I have the hard copy available, I ran out of what I had in hard copy and I'm waiting for more. But I've been relying on A. Douglas Smith, who have theirs published online, and they've been sending them to me to publish as well. But I will reach a point where I run out of papers, but I'm trying to keep a buffer so that as I have more coming in, I've always got one to send out every week, so there isn't a gap for y'all, because I don't want to repeat. I want to use fresh stuff, but it's an effort to continually make sure I have stuff. I can't just hit coast and, go month to month and use up my supply. I need to build up a buffer. It's after 10 o'clock. I'm going to go ahead and do the formal announcement. Good morning, everyone, and welcome to Virginia Research Lodge number 1777's unstated meeting. My name is Chris Douglas. I am your happy host. I'm going to put some links in the chat here real quick. I appreciate you all being here. Most of you should be familiar with Virginia Research Lodge and what a research lodge is. I'm putting this in the chat. Here are some links for you all if you don't already have them. The first is a link to our Facebook group, and you're welcome to join it if you're not already a member. Since you managed to attend this meeting, I suspect you have been to at least our Facebook page, so you know about it. Next is our website for the lodge, and we publish our papers there, as well as those of other lodges in Virginia, research lodges. Then our YouTube channel, where meetings like this one will be posted. I just published the one from 2 weeks ago on the Whence Came You. I just put out as a two-parter because it was well over 2 hours long. And I hope to have a third one because we didn't cover everything, did we, Brian? We had a few questions I didn't get to ask, and it was just running late, so I decided to call it. So that's in a two-parter on YouTube. And then finally, my email, best to ping me is on Facebook, but you can email me as well. And if you're not on our mailing list, you are welcome to contact me through Facebook or by email, and I'll add you to our mailing list. And every week I send a research paper out from our archives or some other lodge. And welcome everybody else. Welcome everybody individually, but thank you all for coming. Today, we have our guest speaker is brother, not worshipful, but brother Randy Sanders. He can give you all his details if you want to hear him, what lodge he's from and all that. And he'll be speaking today on creating sacred spaces. And I'm going to welcome him in one sec. I do want to say this works out well, and I appreciate Randy you being our speaker today. But something I've mentioned on this board before last year, might have been 2020, I can't recall, whenever we did this. But no, actually, we started these in 2021. I'm sorry. Yeah, it was pretty much these have been in 2021. But what we do here in this unstated meeting, where we're meeting on Zoom and we're talking various things Masonic, and we're forming a fraternity here amongst just us, those who attend here regularly from all over the world are able to dial in and attend this meeting. And I have openly opined on quite a few things, but one of them is how do we elevate what we're doing to something higher? How do we make this a sacred space? I think we're similar to the words I chose. So I'm glad Randy's here because maybe he'll point us in that direction. In all seriousness, we do enjoy this and this is a lot of fun, but it's like I want to see if there's something more to this environment. It's not quite what a lodge experience is. And for some of us during COVID, we couldn't attend lodge and we wanted to do something. And I'm just wondering if it's something we can build on here and kind of elevate it beyond just another Zoom meeting and become something of more significance to those who attend. And I don't know. It's kind of like, I don't know what the answer is. I don't know if we can get there. I don't even know what it is I'm fully trying to say that we want. But we pursued talks on alchemy and all sorts of other things, all really esoteric stuff that most of the Blue Lodges don't even delve into anymore. And that's something I want to explore, and people here want to go on that journey. So Randy, you're going to take us on the next step of our journey. Please go ahead.
Oh, thank you very much. Let's see. I'll share my screen here. Can I get co-host?
Yes. One sec. I will. Let's see.
While you're doing that, I'll
Yep, you're set up.
talk about my second favorite subject, me. Just
Okay.
kidding. So the a little bit on my background. I'm relatively new into the Masonic journey, only less than a decade into the Freemasons here. But I have a little bit of esoteric background. I've studied an internal Kung Fu system, Wing Chun Kung Fu, for about 35 years now. Plus, yeah, about 35 years, almost 36. And I've been teaching that Kung Fu system for over 30. Along with that, I've picked up a couple of different Tai Chi systems, the Chen family and the Yang family Tai Chi. Studied quite a few other systems, the Filipino Kali Silat systems, Eskrima, Pakiti Tirsia, along with the Muay Thai, the Thai boxing. Some of that doesn't necessarily seem so spiritual, but in fact, it is very, very deeply spiritual. In fact, the Silat systems, the guys that I were playing around with the Silat, It's 7 years in deep meditative practice and only learning the very, very basics of Salat before they start learning the next 8 years of actual technique and fighting skills. I mean, how wild is that, that a martial arts system says you got to meditate for 7 years before we start teaching you actually how to fight. So pretty cool stuff. And it's very interesting. It was interesting to me when I got into Freemasonry. I see the Western side of the house as opposed to the Eastern philosophies. And I thought, well, there's a mixture there. And sure enough, there's books, all kinds of books written on that mixture of Eastern Western philosophy. And the esoteric practices that come with that. Meditation was just a normal part to me of the Kung Fu class. You can imagine my poor Blue Lodge when I came in and said, all right, where do we meditate and where, how do you guys move energy? Because I'd move energy this way. I got this. This is exactly what I got. Big eyes. What in the world did you just say? Very, very, very taken aback by my blunt, asking my blunt questions. They had no clue as to, many of them had no clue as to what I was talking about. Pretty much none of them had any idea what I was talking about at that particular dinner when I asked that question. So I started reaching out and I started looking around. There were other Masons that have been working in the esoterics and working in the deeper esoterics. And I was fortunate enough to meet many of them when I went to Esotericon in 2019. And from there, formed a bunch of friendships. We got together and said, hey, there's got to be more to this than just green beans and stale coffee. Let's take, let's re-energize this whole Masonic education movement. Brother Chris is part of that, absolutely part of that re-energizing and bringing the virtual education to the world, because there was probably certainly no more than two dozen of us globally that had this light pop on and go, okay, we can do this virtually. This makes sense. Let's do this. So a little bit more about my background, what I particularly do now. I am Brother Randy Sanders. I have very successfully avoided the East up to now, although I am junior warden in my lodge, and I will probably take the East here in the next year and a half or so. A little reluctantly, but it's best for the lodge. And I think that I can bring something to that particular leadership line. So let's do it. And I am a past sovereign master of my Allied Masonic Degrees Council. I'm currently the co-librarian of the Valley of St. Louis, ancient accepted Scottish Rite, Southern Masonic jurisdiction. And yes, that is an invitation. Anytime you want to tour the library, just call me. I'm the clerk or secretary of the Academy of Reflection. It's also through the Scottish Rite, this time through the Valley of Guthrie, Oklahoma. And it's a contemplative studies group, right? It's the real deal. It's legit. In long-term coursework that will take years and years for me to complete. It's going to be a while. You can think of it as a contemplative college, which within Freemasonry. And then I'm also certified through Masonic Legacy Society for teaching I guess there's not a certificate I hang on the wall, but through doing Masonic contemplative practice at the Blue Lodge level, working with Blue Lodge Masons to bring an esoteric, or I hesitate to use the word esoteric many times. So let's go with a contemplative practice into the Blue Lodge. So bring back something that says, this is how we can take a step back and think about Freemasonry. Maybe take that to another level. So this is kind of a cool thing. And Brother Chris and I have been talking about various Masonic subjects for a couple of years now, actually. And it's just kind of culminated to, yeah, okay, let's bring me on, see what kind of weird stuff I'm into and how we might be able to integrate that into what we're doing. So I want to, first off, I'll start off with hello. Thank you for allowing me to spend some time here with you today. It is my honor and privilege to speak with you. And I truly mean that. That is something that I don't take for granted, and I'm very deeply appreciative. I need to give a little bit of credit while I'm talking about these various pieces. And Brother Matt Parker out of North Carolina Masonic Research Society is credited with piquing my interest on this. We had some long conversations about this subject over many evenings, and Brother Matt and I worked through a lot of different concepts over these conversations, and it culminated into this particular presentation. I really appreciate his support and advice. When we talk about sacred spaces, I think that what Brother Chris said earlier is absolutely true. Anytime we want to, we can elevate our own space, our own outward and inward inner sanctum sanctorum, right? We can create that sacred space anytime, anywhere. And I'm going to go through some examples of what I think and what we might agree upon as sacred spaces. And we'll just kind of take it slide by slide. I do need to get my get out of jail free card out there. I only speak for myself. I do not represent any Grand Lodge or established jurisdiction. Don't represent my employer, my other groups that I'm involved with, or any other people that might reference this. This is my research, my opinions and thoughts. I do use humor. I do need to explain that I do use humor to convey messages, and I never disrespect or insult anyone intentionally, and never should that be inferred from my words. Okay. Now, as we're discussing sacred spaces, I would like to begin with a quick and quiet prayer. I would like for everyone here to, I ask you to put both feet on the floor or ground and assume an upright position or comfortable position, any position you use for prayer or meditation. Now, initially, before we start praying, let's just focus on becoming quiet. Let's bring our attention to our breath. And together, let's take 4 deep breaths. I normally say 3, but I'm going to explain 4 in a moment here. Just in and out, don't hold it. Each one allowing us to become a little bit more relaxed, and let any tension simply drop away. And as you finish the 3rd breath at your own pace, I'd like for each of us to pray silently for a few moments, invoking the blessing of deity. Now, we do this to connect both with deity and to ground ourselves for the purposes of this presentation and following discussion. And amen. Now, as we open our eyes, let's look together at the world through the eyes of our inner child. How cool is it when we were children to look around and the world was new and everything was fun and neat and a giant playground? And let's walk through the presentation with that wonder and awe at the work of the grand architect. and what that can mean to each of us. I think that sacred spaces means any place that's sanctified toward deity. We find both natural and man-made examples in most areas of the earth. I also like the definition I found on encyclopedia.com. A sacred place is, first of all, a defined place, a space distinguished from other spaces. The rituals that a people either practice at a place or direct toward it mark its sacredness and differentiate it from other defined spaces. To understand the character of such spaces, Jonathan Z. Smith has suggested the helpful metaphor of sacred space as a focusing lens. I kind of like that. That was kind of cool. This picture is the Aksum in Ethiopia at the Church of St. Mary of Zion, where it's said the Ark of the Covenant resides. Sacred means different things to different people with one binding concept. Its purpose and focus is always towards deity. I respect sacred spaces, and I ask an open mind toward each of us, looking at something sacred that somebody else appears to use as sacred. I'll also pull from texts from different methods of spirituality and consider the depth of meaning rather than dismiss any source because the author or source practices differently. Consider naturally occurring beautiful places. Those of us that have traveled or even simply watched TV witness the beauty and wonder of creation. That special place is indeed sacred to us and to all who witness it. While this picture is simply a stock photo from the Sequoia National Forest, I backpacked in an adjacent forest amongst these giant trees. It was a beautiful and magnificent experience for which I am truly and forever grateful. When we look at this, by the way, that's the in the House of the Temple in Washington, D.C. There's a couple of things that are always defined within the volume of sacred law. And I'm going to ask some questions and let you think about some things. First off, Moses was told to take off his sandals on sacred ground. That's Exodus 3:1 and the chapter of the Ta'ah, verse 12, if you rather. Why take off his sandals? Several theories exist on this, though through Judaism and Islam, and most come to the conclusion that the space was to be regarded as sacred. So the act was to reinforce that condition of a sacred space. Another more esoteric theory is based on the importance of grounding the feet for receiving guidance. There's a whole lot more to that I won't go through here, but we can see in this many different religions around the world where shoes are taken off when entering a deeply sacred space. Now, the questions: where did we learn that certain mountains were holy? Where did we learn a place might be considered sacred? Now, take a look at the altar on the House of the Temple here. Note, there are 6 different volumes of sacred law on that altar. That's pretty cool. I'll let you read the slide here while I talk. Gareth Knight, in his book, Magic in the Western Mind, mentions Stonehenge and other henges, ley lines, and psychic centers. We're just now beginning to understand through science how the Earth's magnetic field truly works. 100 years ago, there were theories as to gravitational waves and their effect on atmospheric conditions. Doctoral level research was ongoing in physics and meteorology regarding gravity waves. 20 years ago, it was a theory. 25 years ago. Now we know these waves do indeed exist, and ongoing research may help us understand how tornadoes and other storms are formed, and how the gravity waves interact with those storms when we see tornadoes and excess snowfall and nor'easters. Now, for the purpose of this presentation, I want to demonstrate invisible nature that still affects us in different ways. Let's slow down the speed and apply that same movement of the gravitational forces on the deep surface of the Earth. Think a few miles down into the Earth. What is the impact of the geological tectonic shifts? That's where the plates come together, forming mountain ranges, or pulling apart, creating canyons over millions of years. And considering the billions of years the planet has evolved as its crust hardened, it makes sense to me that gravity and other forces would polarize and align mineral deposits in the ground. Some of these elements and compounds of varying densities would be concentrated together, right? And then segregated. Consider the pressure of the earthquakes and volcanoes, compressing carbon to create diamonds in the crystalline structure. So these are not small forces. Now, with that in mind, ley lines certainly make a whole lot more sense, don't they? About man-made stuff. So did I mention hinges? Yeah, that's not natural. That's man-made, Randy. Yes, it is. Once we get past the concept of an area or place being naturally sacred, mankind somehow concluded that we should improve upon it. The early versions of this were simply setting up some landscaping gardens to refine that space. A circle of rocks called a hinge is a good example of man creating a circumpunct. That is the point within the circle, right? It also meant that what was inside the circle could be viewed as sacred, thus defining a duality, right? A system of philosophy. What's inside, what's outside. In its most basic sense, inside the circle, circumscribed, outside the circle, non-circumscribed. Duality is really a different topic for presentation in philosophy, but the reference remains important to us here. Now, Stonehenge isn't the largest one. It's kind of the most famous one, right? But stone circles are not unique there with Stonehenge. There's lots of them, and they're typically with a depressed internal area, often simply understood as holy or sacred. Let's take a look at Lbrp, which is recognized as the largest stone circle in the world. Maybe it puts a light on the many other stone circles and other sacred sites of the area of that region. It's worth taking a look at. That's a huge stone circle. Now, pyramids and other certain stone structures are famous for funerary sites, worship sites, sacrificial sites. Some say the formation of King Solomon's temple and the lack of iron tools striking stone at the building site goes back to Old Testament teachings that altars were to be made from loose available stone and not worked stone. I'll say that again. Altars were to be made from loose available stone and not worked stone. The symbolic implications of this are kind of numerous, right? The rough stones, the rough ashlars are for sacrifice, while the hewn or finished stones are for building. Maybe the hewn stones being built elsewhere and fitted into the temple that is your body, your being, alludes to other internal alchemy. Maybe you've talked about that alchemy in other presentations here. Maybe it refers to making use of outside influences to shape your personal ashlar before it's fitted into the temple. Let's circle back to that during discussion. Very simply, you see two carved tombs. The exquisite Taj Mahal. Now, which one of these two pictures has more meaning to you? Let me change your perspective. On the left is a dear brother of ours standing in front of the tomb of Hiram, king of Tyre. Now, which picture has more meaning to you? Pretty cool, huh? Cathedrals, mosques, temples, oh my. What's to say? The operative and speculative Masons both do beautiful work no matter where in the world they live, right? Philadelphia Masonic Temple in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. Kind of self-explanatory, gorgeous structure with other buildings around it that just really highlight how gorgeous it is. So what makes these spaces sacred? Separation, distinguished from whatever we've termed the outside world, typically an altar of some manner, even if it's minimal, window dressing, the other parts of the room, the building or area, beauty, ritual intent, invocation of deity, and most importantly, how do I personally tune into or connect with the sacred space, right? I mean, it's all about me. How do I tune into it? In some cases, it just is. Here's the cave city of Vargia, Georgia. I would call this an amazing space and very sacred, wouldn't you? How cool is that? Shifting it up a touch. If we're discussing sacred spaces, why are we limiting ourselves to the tangible or physical? We already saw gravity waves as an invisible force of nature. Why does so much Masonic and other ritual revolve around time? Brother, what is the hour? 12 times strike the iron tongue of time. What's the first working tool presented to a new brother? Now, in my jurisdiction, it's a 24-inch gauge. Consider this for a moment. Again, my jurisdiction. The very first working tool explained to brethren gives us a lesson about time. Very first. Time itself is sacred, and how we use our time here on earth becomes a lesson to ourselves in living within the divine or connecting with deity. And from that right there, I hope you see why I am so grateful and so appreciative of your time this morning with me. Now, this slide I actually will read and walk through with you. Creating your own physical space in your home can be as simple as clearing clutter, working towards simplicity and comfort, but it's a focus. You're doing something within your home to make that sacred space or that physical space. And things to keep in mind would be connectedness to nature. You know, you've got 5 elements and 5 senses, making use of all 5 elements and all 5 senses as you create that space, your own personal space. And I'm going to pick on the home, but let's talk about the home first and then go on. Cleansing and purification of that sacred space. Now, you know, some people use sage or other incense, candles, bells, singing bowls. Those are pretty cool. I actually don't have any bells or singing bowls here, but they're pretty cool. The Lbrp or other ritual, prayer, all work, all are excellent cleansing and purification methods. Wonderful, wonderful. I highly recommend all of them. Creating that sacred space through ritual. Now, there's things like Sufi dancing, and if you're not familiar with that, definitely worth looking up. Or walking the Bagua circle, if you're familiar with the Chinese martial arts and the internal arts. And you can do things as just as simple as opening and closing the lodge in your head, right? As you create that sacred space for the purposes of prayer or whatever you want to do, you open the lodge in your head. You just think about going through the ritual in your head and going and open it. There's your lodge. Here's your lodge right here, your brain. Okay. And then when you close the lodge, as you finish it, you finish your prayers, finish your meditation, finish your being in that sacred space. The closing of the lodge is everything that you need to reground yourself and go back out into the world, right? Now, setting up a physical altar, up to you. Think about what you want to do. Think about what that means to you. But really, it's the dogma of repetition that we're looking for here, right? And within the Chinese terms, this is your own version of transitioning through meditation or prayer from emptiness to stillness to sinking to softness. What did you feel after those 3 or 4 breaths that we started with? Pretty cool, huh? That relaxation. And that's what you're looking for. How do you expand that to the environment around you? Now, you are the point within the circumpunct. Really? Well, how about Corinthians? Don't you know you are the temple of God? Or in a different way of saying that, know ye not that ye are the temple of God and that the Spirit of God dwelleth within you? That's from the King James Version, the 1611 printing. So that you see the difference there in what I'm saying. Now, P.D. Newman once mentioned, if you're doing middle pillar, you are the center point for the certain banishing ritual, the LBRP. You are that center point in that ritual. Organize your psyche through meditation on Masonic and religious symbols and mandalas. You can take a look and meditate upon Masonic symbols. There is absolutely nothing wrong, and I highly recommend you take the square and compasses and put it up in front of you where you can just stare at it, take those breaths just like I told you, and just calmly close your eyes and focus on that symbol or any of the other symbols that you might have learned in the first, second, and third degrees in the lectures. How cool is that? The ability to use what you've already learned in Freemasonry is as simple as closing your eyes and focusing on it, just letting thoughts come randomly in and out of your head, clearing your mind, letting it come back to the symbol gently. I mean, everybody's mind wanders, so don't get tense about your brain thinking about other things during meditation. Just kind of refocus back on the symbol. Give yourself 10, 15 minutes on it, whatever's comfortable to you. It's actually easier than it sounds. And I think you'll be surprised once you start doing that. Once you find this sacred space and you create this sacred space, the next step is using that sacred space, connecting with deity, connecting the breath to what you're doing, strengthening and internally connecting your feelings into what some may call your aura or energy or ki or chi or prana or whatever word you want to use, because it's all the same. Expanding that energy to the confines of the room may be all that you want to do to make that sacred. I'll talk to you more about that if you want me to in our discussions. But maintaining and connecting that expanded energy, expanding that your own energy into the room. A quote that I thought was kind of relevant here is from Israel Regardi, is as part of the initiation process, it is necessary to sanctify your Malkuth and elevate it to the higher consciousness of Kether, as it is to bring down the Godhead into the holy kingdom. Now, there's a lot of allegory and allusion in that. So you don't have to go think that there's weirdness going on, as really it is a way of talking to you about connecting yourself to God. How are you praying? Because we're talking about prayer. How are you praying? Are you really doing it? It's a good question, right? We can go onto esoteric anatomy with this too, creating the sacred space internally during meditation, which is kind of what Rigardi was talking about. Consider the possibility of the outer temple, the room or space that you're occupying, the space that you just made holy. But you got to make the internal, the middle chamber, your own self holy too, right? I mean, it's not just the space around you that you've created as sacred. It's the internal space that we create as sacred as well. And then the sanctum sanctorum at that point might be as simple as looking at the head or the mind, the brain, as we do things, as we focus on our own meditations, as we make these sacred spaces work for us. Now, is a sacred space portable? Can an automobile become a sacred space? I think so. Think about that. You're setting aside something, you're defining it, you're going to put some effort into making it sacred for a short period. The space that you have within you is just an expansion into a room or another space that makes it sacred, right? P.D. Newman also once told me that the Benedictines teach that the rope used to tie a monk's robes creates a sacred circle that singles him out from baseness, right? Can we say cable tow, right? But that rope that is around the monk's robes, again, focuses back and connects back to that whole circumscribed and externally uncircumscribed circumpunct, right? Now, some questions. Should a created sacred space remain sacred, or can it be returned to nature? Wow. Oh, that's a question. You created a sacred space. Now, what are you going to do with it? When you close the lodge and you walk out of the temple and you've done the activities that go along with closing a lodge, is that temple sacred anymore, or is it just a building? What defines that? That's a good question. There's an answer on both sides of that spectrum. I'm going to let you think about that. There's two different ways of looking at it. To me, the building is a building. Now, after we've met in it for 10 years, 100 years, multiple 100 years, yeah, maybe there's some energy and some sacredness to it that goes beyond just those brick and mortar, right? The stone and mortar. Maybe there's a little bit more to that. Okay. I agree. Actually, I don't disagree with that at all. But can you create a sacred space and then when you're done with it, just kind of return it back to nature and go, yep, I'm done? Absolutely, you can and should. You can create a sacred space standing in line to check out at the grocery store. Sounds silly, but I've done it. Think about how that works for you. It's a choice of the individual, right? Grounding after any personal ritual, whether it be prayer or meditation or whatever, is critical. You must return to normalcy, right? First sentence of the closing charge from the Masonic Manual, a pocket companion for the initiated, from McCoy, revised 1867. This is in at least 3 public monitors, right? Brethren, you are now about to what? Quit this sacred retreat of friendship and virtue to mix again with the world. We're telling you straight up. We're telling everybody, Masons create sacred spaces. We created a sacred retreat of friendship and virtue. We did. Absolutely, we did. Every time that gavel raps and we start. Absolutely. And now we're going to end that and go mix again with the world. Now, I want to thank you very much for your time and your kind invitation, the time that you've given up for me. And I do appreciate it. You're welcome to contact me at any time. Feel free to reach out to me if you need to contact me. You don't have my contact information. Brother Chris can get hold of me. Several of the brothers here know me. And I am always happy and always welcoming of any contact. So please don't hesitate. And with that, I will leave a few questions for you to consider. And I'm going to hand the floor back over to Brother Chris.
Thank you, Brother Randy. That was kind of wow. Still absorbing that. That was very cool. I had a pedantic question, if I could. The first slide that had what is a sacred space? What are those buildings? If you can just bring that back up. That one. Yeah, I was curious. What are those temples? Where is
those are from the Laos and Cambodia region.
Oh, really? Okay.
Yeah, so it's deep into the east.
Which is Buddhist? Or-
Yes,
okay.
those would be, yeah, that would be Buddhist temples.
Because the thing I know, and obviously the one in the foreground is beautiful, but it's larger, and then you all these smaller ones dotted around that. I was kind of curious as because normally you see one sacred space, one church, whatever, in an area, and then you see either nothing, trees and nature, or you see houses and the city around it. But here it's like one big temple and all these other little temples surrounding it. I've never seen anything like that. Any idea of what the meaning is there or what?
Oh, no, nor have I seen it in person. I came across this picture and it just like you, it raised way too many questions for me not to include it in the presentation. It's obviously to the people in this region, the sacredness of that particular region is so incredible that they have just gone overboard with creating their own monuments toward deity. And I'm deeply appreciative of this. I would love to visit one of these days. I can't say that I will. Some of the political tension in those areas is a little bit rough for me, but maybe in the future we'll be able to visit there.
Cool. I guess to quantify my comment, if you have a church in a given community, that's the church that everyone goes to, right? I mean, it draws people together. So people, presumably everybody who lives around there who attends comes to that church. Thus you have one focal point. The fact that we have multiple focal points in a fairly small area is something unique. It's something I haven't seen. I guess kind of my point, multiple focal points. Why would you feel the need to do that? You know what I'm saying? I mean, you could have a church and then a church adds on a, what do they call it? A reception hall or a meeting. I can't think of the name of it right now. My church has one, but you have a meeting hall next door to the church. The name will come to me in a minute, but that's where you go and you have dinners and you have the kitchen there, and that's where people go. That's where the school is, the Sunday school and the other things. That's more for activities outside of the sanctuary, right? but it's still part of the same property. You still have the sanctuary where you go to worship, but the communion hall, that's what it was, is for gathering afterwards or before or on nights you don't have services. This is like multiple sanctuaries.
Yes,
John,
yes, it
did you
is.
did you have a comment, John? You popped up there.
Oh, sorry. Part of it is that I wound up getting dropped out of the video altogether.
Oh, I'm sorry. Well, it will
and
be
it
on
won't
YouTube.
reestablish. So, yeah. Actually, I do have something that would relate.
Sure.
In church school back, our church used to sponsor evangelical groups regularly, and one of the largest of them was a group to Japan. And there are apparently a very, very large number of Japanese who are Episcopal joint with oh man, this is why I didn't speak up earlier. Shinto.
Ah, yes.
Yes. And so they will have areas in their house dedicated to their ancestors and occasionally to the kami, however you pronounce that. And they will keep and maintain those in addition. They have a slightly different worldview apparently on how this works. But I always found that fascinating. So they'd be having sacred spaces, and the sacred spaces were somehow being directed, if you like, or dedicated.
And it's right there in your
house. It's possible to
house
have
for
sacred
you
spaces in more than one direction. Say again.
It's right there in your house to experience. You don't have to go to the temple. Right. I would say similar.
Or you'll have little areas next to the roadside, which the community will contribute to and keep going permanently.
Right. Well, America in our own way, we do that. I think America is probably the only country that does this. But when someone dies in an accident along the road, someone will build a little shrine there to that person, and then that stays. I mean, somebody puts up a cross in honor of someone who died right there, and then people will come back and add. We have shrines like Princess Diana died. There was a shrine built outside Buckingham Palace where everyone came and lit candles and brought little stuffed animals and pictures and whatever else, and just sort of becomes a shrine. So humans are more than capable of just building a shrine on demand, right wherever in honor of something. I wanted to say something related to that, John, about what the Shinto do is it's a Jewish custom. I don't know much about it, where there's a small thing. I don't want to be disrespectful, but there's a thing that you put on your door frame when you come in your house that you're supposed to touch when you come in and out. If anyone here is Jewish or is familiar with that and can help me out here, because I can't think of what it's called. I've seen it depicted in movies and such, where a small thing you tack to the frame where you touch it on entering and leaving the house, and it has some religious meaning. And I'm drawing a blank on what it is.
Over this house. Pass over this house.
Right. Well, what? Anyone want to help me? Okay, no, we're gonna help me out. All right, fine. Well, it's a thing. All right.
I think it relates to the passing over the blood when the death angel came by. They put the blood up on the doorposts.
It might be. I'm not sure. I do remember seeing it in something. I think it was the Seventh Seal, that rather cheesy movie about the end of days or whatever, and the Jewish character that was talking to whoever the main female actress was, and it's like when he's walking in and out of his house, he touched the thing. I don't know. I can probably go Google it. One more question I got, and I'll turn it over to the group here, Randy. What is LBRP?
That is the lesser banishing ritual of the Pentagram. It is it was created only about 120 years-ish ago by the group of Masons that then split off and formed Golden Dawn. And it's the intent behind it, the lesser banishing ritual, is to harmonize the four directions. And essentially it's an invocation of archangels, putting an archangel or the essence of an archangel in each of the cardinal points, north, south, east, west. And what you do when you do that is balance by nature and balance by spirit at the same time. Any space. You can do LBRP, well, if you want to. You could do it in the middle of a grocery store. That would be rather strange. But you can also do it mentally as a mental exercise to clear your mind, right? There's a bunch of different usages of that. And the pentagram, remember that the pentagram, especially with Golden Dawn, has nothing to do with demonic whatever. In this particular case, we're talking about 5 elements, 5 senses, the 5 elements. And then when you're talking about the Trinity of God, you add the quaternary of man and the quint, the 5th element of nature.
Yeah.
Right. So the pentagram in this case is referring to the esoteric of the 3 plus man plus nature in unity, and then balancing that spiritual to physical, as above so below, in any particular space. I did that terrible justice, but I hope that explains what it's about.
I think you got it across. And Brother Joyner was kind enough to send me a message, and I did Google it here. Jews, it is called a mezuzah. It declares the people who dwell here live Jewish lives. Jewish household is created by the people who live in it, by the way they act, the things they do, and don't beliefs they hold. To a great extent, a Jewish way of life is a portable faith. You can take it with you anywhere you go. I just found that by Providence. That's the first article I pulled up. Generally accepted Judaism religion is more oriented to holiness of time than holiness of place. There are many occasions we sanctify, but very few we call holy. So yeah, so you put it on your door, and I do believe in there's some, yeah, you hang it. Should be fixed to the doorpost of every living space in the house, not just the entrance door. Any room that has 2 doorposts and an overhead lintel requires a mezuzah. And it says bathrooms and closets such do not. So it gets into the details. So if you want the article, tells you exactly how to set up your mezuzah, how to fix it, and then you have a blessing as you come in. So I guess the idea, as you enter the house, you're supposed to touch the mezuzah. So yeah, it reinforces that this house is a living space, perhaps a sacred space for the people who live there. They live according to Jewish custom. So again, it is more, I won't say it's exclusively Orthodox, but as we've noticed here, that the Jews tend to be, there are the Orthodox who follow all of the rules, and then the more modern who simply kind of follow some of the rules. As a side note, I was watching the show Entourage, where the Jeremy Piven did a great job as the agent for our movie star. And he was Jewish, but kind of only when he had to be. And there's one episode where they're trying to do some work on the Sabbath and close a big deal. And it was some holy day, I forget what it was. But he and another agent go to meet with some other big shot, some movie exec or something. And he looks at them and says, I don't know what you do in your half a church modern synagogue, but we practice whatever here. So he was slamming them. He was like, I love the line of, what you do in your half a church synagogue over there, but we're observant Jews here. Anyway, I don't know, not to pick on the Jews. I just found that amusing. What I know about the Jewish faith is you have the Orthodox and the one who are very strict, and then you have the more modernist, and then the more sort of like reformed. And well, we kind of do it when we feel like it. And I guess a lot of Christians are that way too, but just not as many, or fundamentalists, only a few. Any questions for Brother Randy? I don't want to capitalize on him here. Anybody else want to ask a question? Please speak up.
I'd like to ask one question on, I was raised like 2.5 years ago, so I'm really pretty new to this still. And one of the things I hear often is that many men in the fraternity understand or can read the rituals and know the rituals and all that, but very few ever understand the mysteries of Freemasonry. Would you say this creating sacred spaces, connection with deity, is that what we're talking about with the mysteries, really making that connection?
That will help. I will ask a favor and ask you to ask me that question after we've stopped the recording, if you don't mind.
Okay.
I don't mind answering that in front of our brothers here, but that's something when we start talking the mysteries, that's literally what we don't talk about publicly. So
Okay. Thanks.
no, I'm happy to answer. Believe me, I could talk about this all day long, and I would love to.
Right.
But yes, let's.
And that's the awkward thing. And yes, and just to touch on that briefly, Randy, is I can post a Zoom meeting and I can choose not to record it, and that's fine. This still isn't tiled. I never consider anything done online as being tiled in any way sense. Yes, this will go away when we're done, but potentially someone could be listening into this conversation. I don't know for a fact that Zoom does not record these meetings on their own. I can't vouch for that. Anything can be intercepted. So anything that's done on Facebook, any social media, any online thing, even if it's temporary, is not secure and thus can't be tiled. So I would say whether we're recording or not, to me, is immaterial whether it's being recorded or not. That's why I think it's funny when people talk about, we're going to have an online meeting, we're going to open and close and all that. It's like, you're not secure. Again, I keep going back to the military definition. Yes, the military has SIPRNet. If we wanted to, if Masons wanted to invest in an online internet presence, much like SIPRNet that the military uses, they know there's a level of security for every single piece of equipment that can access it. And it's through virtual, I guess through VPNs and all that, we probably could set up an environment that we consider to be secure enough to have a tiled meeting. But that technology simply isn't there. And I'm not confident in it. Like, I don't talk ritual over the phone with someone. I won't. Anyway.
The mysteries are different from the ritual, and the modes of recognition I won't go into, the things like that. But talking about the mysteries, I'm happy to do so. Understood what you just said. You're planning on posting this, and I'm appreciative of it. Please do post this. That particular question, I'd just rather not answer on the posted video.
Understood. Okay,
So.
I'll be happy to cut off the recording when we're done if you want to answer. That's your call.
Awesome.
Brother Michael, you had a question and a comment. Good to see you. And you need to unmute before you start talking.
Okay, great. Two quick comments. One, that interesting thing about the mezuzah is it must be handwritten. It cannot be, you can't run it off on your copy machine and stick it in the mezuzah. A proper mezuzah is only done by hand, and every letter must be perfect, or else it ruins the sacredness.
Oh yeah, there's a piece of paper you put inside of the little wooden box, if I understand correctly. Okay, very cool.
It's interesting is many roads in America, are actually, they're not random, just like nothing in Masonry is random. A lot of them go back to Native American trails. For example, even Highway 95, which parallels the older 301 and Highway 1, is actually done on the fault line of Virginia. So there is, you literally go from Tidewater to a mountains and valley region, which is an actual geographic landmark in the state of Virginia. Because I know I cross that on the way to work. So the weather, when I live at home, the 30 miles when I get to home, because I'm crossing from Tidewater, into Piedmont, the weather will change because the weather actually literally will follow 95 and be different on either side of it.
Huh.
Even there's some other trails in Virginia that were animal trails that the natives made their own lands. And Lance, I just had a quick question. Where was that the tomb of Hiram? Where was that? Where is that located?
In Lebanon, in Tyre. Well, Tyre, Lebanon.
Okay.
Very cool. All right. Other questions? We still have time. We're only at an hour, so this is kind of this. Ideally, we run an hour. We never do, and I'm always happy. People stick around. Generally, everybody sticks around after the after 11. But like I said last week, or 2 weeks ago, we ran almost 2.5 hours. I was like, okay, we need to call it. I don't expect people to watch this on YouTube. Any other questions? Please, if you have anything you want to bring up, you're more than welcome.
Well, maybe now's a good time to stop recording and go
Okay.
into some other conversations.
Okay. Well, I'm gonna do all the official housekeeping then. I do appreciate you being here, Brother Randy. I appreciate my worshipful master being here. Oh shoot, did he drop? Ah, dang, looks like he dropped off. John's still here, but Rooster dropped off. I wanted to thank my worshipful master and my marshal being here, Brother John. I'm the junior warden this year for Virginia Research. Most of you know that. I have been chiding my brothers in my law. Oh yeah, and of course, Brother Michael Joyner is now a member of Virginia Research Law, so I'll count him as well. He's a recent joiner. I've had the opportunity to bring in 3 DEOs into my research lodge this year, so I'm doing pretty good. Michael's one of them, so I think every DEO should belong to research lodge, but that's just me. But I wanted to announce our next talk is going to be on Saturday, February 12th. We typically have these. I did the once a week in 2021, and it got to be a lot. Oh, and Rooster's back. Let's bring him back in. We did these unstated meetings every week, and it was a lot of fun. But I ran out of speakers, and it got to be quite a burden for me. And then I found I'd have a conflict one week or after another. You know, there's always something coming up on a Saturday, and I'm never sure. Welcome back, Rooster. I'm never sure if I'm walking a fine line between if I have it every single Saturday and everyone knows any given Saturday they can show up, then that's something you can easily get used to doing. If I make it every 2 weeks, you may not always remember, but I try to remind everyone in emails and through Facebook to let them know we're meeting. But honestly, lining up speakers is a constant effort. I have to do many things. And one of them is making sure I've got speakers lined up in enough of a buffer that it's not a week before Saturday. It's like, oh crap, I don't have a speaker this week. I don't know what I'm going to do. So I think if I do it every other week, I can get regular attendance. I'm not sure. We'll see how that goes. If this becomes really popular and you all demand that we start meeting every week, then we'll change it up. That's fine. But right now it's every other week, and that there's always a reason why we're doing stuff, just to explain it to y'all. So our next meeting is going to be Saturday, February 12th. Again, it's always at 10 a.m. on a Saturday. I will say there was one exception where we met on, I think it was a Sunday afternoon, because we had a Jewish brother who was giving a talk on, I believe it was on alchemy, and he would not participate in anything on Saturday because it is a Sabbath to him. So we actually met on a Sunday for that one meeting. I found Saturdays at 10 works well for everybody who shows up regularly. So I'm accommodating those of you who do make the effort. If somebody says, I can't make it there on Saturdays and they never come, well, I'm sorry, I can't help it. But if the majority of our participants have no trouble getting here on Saturday mornings, Saturday afternoons in Great Britain area, that's what works for us. We're going to continue to do that to be consistent. But I'll occasionally do something on an off day if there's a special reason. Anyway, on Saturday the 12th, that is Chartres, I'm saying it wrong, Chartres Cathedral and the Preservation of Sacred Knowledge. And Brother Parvez Tirani is our guest speaker. He had hoped to be here today, but we're looking forward to that, and that should be interesting. February 19th, we are meeting in person in Highland Springs, Virginia, and our guest speaker is going to be Worshipful Joe Martinez. He will be speaking on the application of esotericism in the craft. And Michael says Chartres. I knew I was butchering the name. But anyway, Joe Martinez was gracious enough to step up and be our guest speaker in February. So that's when we're meeting in person. And then I'm still working on the 29th, I think. So I've got a book covered for most of February. So I've got a month out, so I'm doing pretty good. I'm trying to line you all up and get my speakers to be here regular, get enough of them in advance so we always have something lined up. And yeah, Joe was our guest speaker last year here. In fact, I was asking him to come back again and be one of my speakers. And then I realized Rooster asked me to help line somebody up for February. And since that was more important, having a speaker at our physical meeting is much more important. So I said, Joe, you're going to do this first, if that's okay. And then I'll book him later on to come here online. This is secondary to our stateds, obviously. I did want to put this out there, and this is part of why I wanted Randy here. And Randy's given us a lot of insight on individually how we can create a sacred space. And I want everybody to go back, watch the video, and hopefully it'll help you practice this on your own. So here's the thing, Randy, is obviously when we meet in person in a lodge, we all have assigned seats. We all have the ritual. We're physically present. We can burn incense, not to get too much into the traditional observance thing, but we could have music. We could have candles and incense. We can set the tone physically, and we do the ritual that does create our sacred space of a lodge room. But we're meeting here online. I can't have ritual. I don't want to pretend and invent any sort of a ritual for us to do here. I don't think it's appropriate. But we're meeting here regularly with purpose, with intent. I think everybody here, if you're here, you're interested in going down the rabbit hole with me and exploring where we can take this. And I'm going to look back in 2 years and feel really stupid and awkward in the way I'm phrasing things, but because we're going to figure this out. And we'll go back and watch. It's like, yeah, Chris didn't know what he was saying then. He knew what he wanted to say, but he couldn't say it. But we've got it figured out now. I'm just hoping to go back later on and look at this and go, yeah, I knew where you were going, but you finally got there, so good on you. That's why I'm trying to articulate something that's hard for me to say. But I want to go down the rabbit hole with y'all. I want to go explore the esotericism of Masonry. I want to explore the deeper things that Masonry we scratch the surface of and we allude to. We allude to a whole lot in Masonry. Do we actually practice it? And where can we go as a group? You all know where we are. We're not physically present, any of us, with each other. We're all over the world. We're all coming in through this wonderful technology, and we're able to sit here. We can see each other, and we can talk to each other. We can hear each other. We can throw up presentations. We can't manage to do the feeling or the smelling or the tasting, but we can meet at least two of the senses here, unless each of you is going to set up a little stick of incense off to the side while we're meeting here. But I'm just wondering, as a group, what can we do to elevate this, to take this to a higher level? What are some of the things we can start exploring to do here to create an environment where we're actually learning more as we're exploring this esotericism? And I don't have the answer. That's why I'm kind of putting it to y'all. How can we do that? Do we meditate, say a brief prayer as Randy did at the beginning of this? Is that something we should try doing? So I like feedback. Any of you have suggestions what we could try? Am I making sense where I'm trying to go? Please.
Well, Brother Chris, you've hit on a couple of things that we've done with this particular start that we did today. I asked everybody to take some deep breaths and do a prayer, a silent prayer, and that, as much as focusing inwardly on ourselves, I asked us to invoke deity and to bring deity into the presentation. And I think that we also connected with deity in our own ways as we were looking at these sacred spaces. What did that mean to me? What did that mean to each individual here, right? And then collectively, we're now talking about it. So I think you're already on the path. I think you've already started doing this in bringing people together. You've got a start. You talk about what things happen or what's going to happen. At the end, you talk about what's going to happen in the future. And you've got the ritual in place of what you've been doing week to week to week. I think that the egregore is going to be a little bit looser than if we were able to be together. But I think you're already on the path.
Okay, I feel better hearing that. Like I said, as you probably have noticed, I don't mind just running my mouth, vamping as we call it in the business to fill space. But it's like I'm catching. I'm barely touching an idea. I feel it. It's like I'm feeling in the dark, and I've got my fingertips on it, but I haven't got a firm grasp of it yet. But I'm reaching, and I know that I know where I want to go. I'm just trying to figure out I'm trying to find ways to articulate it. And I have no trouble speaking extemporaneously, as you probably noticed. I'm happy to I memorize ritual all the time, and I present ritual. I think that there are two kinds of Masons who like speaking. There are those who like the ritual. I give you this and you memorize it. I either teach you word of mouth or you have it written down and you memorize it, commit it to memory, and you're very good at presenting it and giving the ritual in an installation, an initiation ceremony. There are Masons who are good at that. There are Masons who are good at public speaking. Those of us who can take a paper and write up a paper on our own and give a talk, whether it's written out or even off the cuff. I feel fortunate to be both of those. A lot of Masons are good at one, but not the other. And I feel I'm good at both. So I have no problem getting there in public speaking. So I'll run my mouth and try to express an idea that I haven't taken the time to sit down and write it out. Maybe if I sat down and wrote down my thoughts and tried to organize this and maybe present something to the group where it's more concrete and you can understand it and you don't have to listen to me talk for 5 minutes to pull the one thought out of it, maybe that will help. But I feel like at least expressing the idea openly to all of you, you kind of get where I'm going and then y'all can build on it. But it's sort of like I'm trying to get somewhere and I don't know if I'm making much progress in moving that way or even is where I'm going. I just know I'm going somewhere, if that makes sense. So anybody, if you want to help me out, bail me out and say, yeah, okay, I hear what you're saying. Maybe we can try this. I'd love to hear it. So if you have any suggestions, if this makes sense, if you say I'm crazy, we shouldn't even bother, say so. I don't know. But I feel like we're trying to get to a higher level with these unstated meetings. I feel different in this meeting than I do in any of the other ones I attend. And I've attended several. Most of them are a pretty standard format, much like the Research Lodge. Yours today is not that far off the formal track, if you want to call it that. We have a prepared speaker. You come in, you've written something, you've got it on PowerPoint usually, and you give your presentation, and then we have questions after. And that's how most lodges go, and that's how most of these other Zoom things I've attended, they have your speaker and they have a brief time for questions, and that's it. I think we spend more time socializing here than other Zoom meetings I've been on. And that's part of it. I want to encourage that. Maybe the ones I'm tuning in on, well, I don't know. I try to join them when they are on. Maybe they do that before they let everybody in. I don't know. But I kind of look at it as I like to fill 10 minutes before we start just to chat with people and get everybody kind of relaxed and in the mood and get everybody a chance to come in, because I don't want people coming in the middle of your talk. So we have about 10 to 15 or 20 minutes before the speaker where it's just sort of us blabbing at each other. And I cut some of that out before I start the actual, I try to make it closer to the speaker. And, so it's not stuff people would necessarily want to watch, but I don't know. But I feel like we've got a community growing here is what I'm trying to say. We have a community that we're building here. I feel closer to this group, maybe because I'm the one driving it. So maybe that's my bias because I'm responsible for it. But I feel like we have a vibe going on here I don't feel in other Zoom meetings I've been on, if that makes sense. And maybe for other people, they have a better vibe there. I just haven't picked up on it. But I don't know. I'd love some comments from y'all. Anybody want to chime in?
Yeah, Brother Chris, I particularly really enjoyed this session because I know we can't review ritual on a site like this or an untitled meeting, but one of the things I noticed a lot of times you're going through the degrees, you're listening to lectures, and the person did more or less just memorize it. You're going through it so fast, you don't really even get a chance to contemplate what does it all really mean. And it does seem like today, even though we're not digging into a ritual and can't, but it does seem like we're trying to get to more of the sense of what is Masonry all about with this kind of thing, the sacred spaces. So I think you're definitely onto something too. I found it very interesting.
Very good. Okay. Well, Randy did want to discuss something when we're done recording, so I'm going to wrap it up. By all means, I don't want to cut anybody off, but anybody else have any comments before we stop the recorded portion?
I just real quick. Oh, Chris, this is not so much a comment, but I just want to invite everyone. I'm getting my Mark Mason degree on Monday.
Oh,
It's unfortunately not going to be at Mason's Hall in Richmond where we were hoping, but down at the Petersburg Lodge. So they're going to divide the degrees up. So if anybody is free Monday night, wants to come to cold Petersburg, we'd like to have you there.
oh,
I'm excited about it.
Very good.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
I was going to chide you. I'm glad that you're getting your Royal Arch degrees, but it's like you haven't already. But anyway.
Yeah, I know.
I just like to say you've done a fantastic job, and I commend you on this. I admire you. You got that gift to gab more than I do.
Yeah.
But it's interesting. You keep it interesting.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I appreciate it, Rooster. I appreciate you being here.
I'm glad I could make it today.
When Brother Chris is talking about this group energy or group thing, I say it's worth it to go look up egregore, EGE, GROGORE, egregore, whatever. Anyway, egregore is literally defined as group energy or group consciousness, and there's drawing an egregore together is an instantaneous thing, and over a long period of time, a lodge will develop an egregore of its own. So not only will you grab a group consciousness or group energy off of any one particular gathering, but it can and will continue with that same group of people over a period of time. And it can go through generations. Absolutely. A lodge is a really good example of that. Long-standing churches have phenomenal egregore. You walk into certain churches who've been around for a very long time, and even if you're not part of that particular congregation, you can just feel how amazing the energy is on any given Sunday. You walk in on a Thursday and you can just feel that, oh man, on a Sunday, this place must be rocking. And that's, when you get those feelings, those are real. Those feelings are real. That's not just your brain playing tricks on you. You're tuning into that egregore. Brother Chris has created an egregore here that is that I can feel, even though we're virtual. The ease at which we're able to talk to each other is not just because we're Masons. It helps, but it's because we've communicated before. I know several of you on this call, and I know that you on this call have spoken with each other multiple times just from the ease of that conversation and inclusion. And that is, it's palpable. It's something that you should tune into. I commend you for it.
Very good. Thank you. I hear what you're saying. Yes, you can create. I guess maybe that's the way to put it. We're already building the thing that I want to build. I just can't put a name. I can't fully articulate what it is we're building, but we're moving in that direction. So I get that is a very good thing. I'm always trying to figure what's the next step. Are we moving in that direction? Are we growing something here? Where are we going with this? So any other questions or comments from anyone?
Comment.
Related, can I ask Brother Brian Smith the specifics of what your background is with the White Cross?
Yep, certainly. It's the Cross of Cornwall. I live in the UK in a county called Cornwall, which is one of the 5 Celtic nations, and that's our flag.
Okay, thank you very much.
Well, and you added the square and compass, just to be clear.
Yeah.
There aren't,
Not quite
I
that
don't think there are any national flags with the square and compass. There might be one day, but we aren't there yet.
I got one comment on community.
Please.
I'm an amateur radio operator, and on Sunday nights, there's a group of us that are Masons that meet. Of course, it's open. It's on to any amateur radio operator. But for some of the point on community is that some of these guys cannot get out to lodge at night due to their age or infirmity or something like that, and we're the only contact they have to Masons that are outside their house or a retirement home or wherever they're living. So we formed a community, and for some that's the only community they have at the moment with other Masons. So what you're doing can form a community that is meaningful to people. So you're on the right track.
All right. Well, thank you. Anyone else? Last call. All right, we're going to continue for a minute. I just wanted to wrap up the recorded portion. And anyone watching this on YouTube is going to be upset. Like, well, I wanted to hear that part. So if you're watching me on YouTube, please like and subscribe. I don't know how big my YouTube channel is going to get, but I do have people who regularly tune in and watch at least a portion of these recordings. And that's something else. I'd love to have feedback from any of you all. The YouTube videos are over an hour long because these meetings run over an hour. I'm told by members of my research lodge, Rooster, our junior deacon, I think, was telling me that we were talking about social media and taking advantage of making like a podcast or something. And he says that no one's going to tune in if it's more than 15 minutes long. So maybe if I find some spare time somewhere, I may take some of these older meetings and maybe trim them down if I can. I don't know how to bring them in under 15 minutes. I really don't. And I'm surprised people will sit through an hour long recording. Sitting through it, attending a Zoom meeting is not as hard, I think, as going to YouTube and watching a Zoom meeting that you're not a part of, honestly. I'm a little surprised that anyone is watching the YouTube, but people ask me, and I have been recording them, and people go back and watch them, at least a portion of them. So I assume they have some value to people out there. But please like and subscribe if you're watching me on YouTube. But I'm going to go ahead and end the recording portion. And I've already announced what's coming up next. So looking forward to see you all at the next Unstated meeting.